Hi, everybody. My name is Shimri Winters, and today we'll discuss how to ace the MBA interview. So let's get on with it. You can write your comments on YouTube. This is a live session, and I'll actually be viewing your comments all the time. And at the end of this session, we'll go through all your comments, and hopefully I'll manage to answer some of your questions. So let's get started. Just a bit more about myself. My name is Shimri Winters. I head the ARINGO strategy team. I'm also an undergraduate in computer science and a London Business School MBA. After my MBA, I was asked to be in the admissions committee of the London Business School, and I used to interview candidates for the London Business School for about 7 years. So I've interviewed tens of candidates to the London Business School and have been working in prep ever since. So that was me. This is my only marketing slide. I work at ARINGO. ARINGO are very good. We help candidates get into top 10 MBA programs. Check us out on aringo.com. That was my marketing slide. I'm very good at marketing. Okay, let's talk about what we wanted to talk about today. So again, the topic of today is how to ace an MBA interview. Now, just I have one slide that actually explains what is an MBA interview. I think we should just check that out, and so we're all on the same page. And then basically, when I thought about this presentation, I thought about three big elements, which are before the interview, during the interview, and after the interview. I think that makes sense. But we'll also go through, a few specific interview questions. And I've also seen some mistakes done, so I just wanted to point them out. And basically, I want to answer questions. So I'm going to try and do this session quite quickly. I'm going to try and talk very quickly, so you get out a lot of it. And let's get to it. So just so we're all on the same page, what is an MBA interview? Okay, so if you've reached this kind of stage, I'm very excited if you did. This means you've sent an application to an MBA program. They have screened your application. It was appealing to them. They liked it. And they've decided to invite you for an interview. Now, some schools have 15, 20% interview rate. That means it's very hard to receive an interview. Some schools, very few schools, might interview 100% of the candidates. Okay, Kellogg is a good example for a school that interviews nearly all applicants. And Stanford and Harvard are schools that don't interview many candidates and don't accept many candidates. So that would be, two scales. So, but usually if you have a good application, I do expect you to get an interview. And you can consider this as the second stage of your candidacy to a business school. Now, a lot of people ask me, okay, so is this the decisive stage? That means if I've passed the first stage, is it now a clean sheet? Is this now 100 points, 0 to 100? Yes, no? The answer is mixed. Basically, if you've been screened and you have a very good interview, yes, you'll get into the business school. It's as simple as that. And if you've had a very bad interview, you will not get into your MBA program. Okay, so it's also as simple as that. The problem is there's a lot of people in between that have had quite a good application, not the best in the world, but it's quite good, and quite a good interview. And then the mixed score might get them in, might not get them in. So the interview is 100 if you do a very good interview, or 0 if you do a very bad one. But if you have something in between, you might get in, you might not get in, and it really depends on how well you did in both those stages. I think it's very important to look at who interviews you. You can't choose this, but the school will choose it for you. Some schools during some rounds they will interview you. So admission committee members from the school, for example, Harvard, they will usually come and interview you. Again, in these COVID days, it might be online or it might be face-to-face, that can change. But again, I think that doesn't make the interview any different. What makes it different is who interviews you. So it can be an admission committee member, ADCOM. It can be a second-year student. In some schools, second-year students interview. And in most top MBA programs, I would say that alumni are the interviewers. Okay, so And that can really make the interview different, because if it's a second-year student that's never interviewed before, he or she might have a certain style of interviewing. And if it's an admission committee member who's interviewed 1,000 people, they might have a different style of interviewing. So that's a bit about who might interview you. Right. I kind of put here what we're not going to discuss in this session. Just wanted to have kind of a nice rules for this presentation. What I wanted to discuss is the second stage of an MBA application. Basically, you've been screened for an interview. The interview is a face-to-face interview. Okay, it might be over Zoom, it might be on campus, it might be off campus, but it's a face-to-face, one-on-one interview. I'm not going to discuss different types of interviews. For example, a lot of the schools have added another stage. It might be after the application, it might be after the interview, it might be before. There's different schools are playing with this, which is called a video interview. It's also a lot of fun. You get kind of 1 minute and you kind of record something. There's some programs that have a presentation or even a case, like Cornell Tech or HEC Paris or London Business School. Wharton have a team-based discussion. So I'm not going to discuss all these. I'm just going to discuss the very straightforward MBA interview. Again, I'm just reminding you, you can write your comments. This is a live session, and I will be answering them at the end of this presentation. Right, so remember we said we'll discuss 3 main stages: before the interview, and after the interview. Right, what do you do before the interview? So you receive the interview, yay! I need to put my party hat on, yay! Very exciting, okay? But now, we also have to pass the interview. First of all, I know it sounds strange, read the email you will receive from the school. Why? Some schools send your entire application to the interviewer, some don't. Some schools will tell you you have to schedule your interview within 48 hours or within 7 days. Some don't. Some will say, click here, okay, to schedule an interview. If you click there in 2 weeks, you might not have any more slots. If the school says you really want to have an interview within a week, they might know that the interviewer might be busy. Okay, so first of all, read the instructions. Sometimes you have to send your CV to the interviewer, for example. Obviously, whatever the instructions say, do. If it says schedule the interview, which it usually does, then schedule the interview. Okay, this sounds a bit strange, and I actually suggest doing this before the interview. A lot of the interviewers will Google you. Now, if your CV says you work at McKinsey and your LinkedIn says you worked at Coca-Cola, that's an issue. Okay, so just make sure, just Google yourself a bit. I would do this before the application. Just make sure that what you're sending the interviewer and what shows about you online, in your online presence, mainly LinkedIn, are aligned. I think that's important. There's no shame in researching your interviewer. A lot of people, I ask them, okay, who's interviewing you? And they tell me, oh, it's, Dan and Dan Smith, MBA 2010. And I say, great, like, what do you know about him? They say, nothing. So I say, have you checked their LinkedIn? And they tell me, no, I don't want him to see that I've checked him. Why not? Okay, so when I meet someone for any business transaction, I Google them. Why not? So it's absolutely fine to LinkedIn someone to check them out. Don't send them hearts on Facebook, but you can check them out. If you work with ARINGO, with someone else, obviously, we have a lot of intelligence reports about a lot of interviewers. Okay, we know a lot of the interviewers, so we can tell you some things about them. So it's fine to do some kind of check. If you know people who know them, I think that's important to kind of understand. Did they go together to their MBA, if they're alumni? Did they go to the MBA with a partner? Where were they working before? What's the common grounds that both of you have? Are you both lawyers, accountants? Did he do a transition into private equity like you want to do? So it's fine to research the interviewer. Obviously, we've done all that. Let's start preparing for the interview. And we'll discuss that in the next slides. So think about any questions they may ask you, and either the common questions or something very specific about your profile. If you were the world champion in bowling, I think they're going to ask you about that. So be prepared. Okay. I'm just again looking at the comments. If anyone wants to ask any questions or comments, just ask me on the chat, and I'll be answering them at the end. Let's keep on. Okay, so let's move on and actually go into some general tips. They're all, I said they're obvious, but so let me give you an example. Last year I had a candidate, just to say to tell you the truth, he was out of the country when he got the interview result. So he knew he has an interview. It was for Chicago. And he sent his interviewer an email saying, "Hi, I'm very excited about the interview. I can see we need to do it in the next 3 weeks. Can we do it on Friday, the 5th of February? I'll exaggerate, between 10 and 11. Okay, no. You're the interviewee. Respect the interviewer and their time. You can say, I'll be out of the country next week, or I'm very busy with a project. Can we make it the week after? Okay, the following week, I'll make myself available anytime, just not this week. That's legitimate to say. But you can't just say, can we do it Friday next week at 10? No, respect the interviewer. Obviously, don't be late and turn your cell phone off and distractions. I just did an interview prep this morning with someone. His internet stopped in the middle. Obviously, this was a prep session. And that happened. Then he moved somewhere. I could hardly see him. The lighting was very bad. Again, this was via Zoom. And there was a dog barking. Okay, so I know it sounds silly, but just check those things out. Get there on time. If it's via Zoom, don't be late. We'll talk about how to answer questions. I really don't like people who talk too much. Okay, if I ask a question, just answer the answer. Okay, it can be 1 minute. We'll talk to some questions that might take even 3 minutes, even 4. But just talk to the point. Be brief. Another thing is be positive. You'll be surprised, but a lot of times you can use negative words, and these will have an impact. Okay, so if you use negative words, for example, well, I'm not very good at that, and I want an MBA because I really feel I don't communicate very well, that's not very good. But if you say, I want an MBA because I want to strengthen my communication skills, or I want an MBA because I want to strengthen my analytical skills, that sounds differently. A lot of people kind of, I won't say lie on MBA applications, but they bend the truth quite a lot. The problem is it might pass kind of the first screening, but then there's an actual interview. And, it's going to be very hard for a 25-year-old to say he's been working 15 years at Shell. So, be truthful. If I catch you lying on an interview, that's it. You're done. So, your stories have to make sense. And, I hope they're true. Obviously, give examples. Okay, don't just give me, 1 or 2 bullets. Give me examples of the questions I asked. And of course, be prepared. Now let's go through some of the questions. Again, I'll show you our big 9 questions, which are the most common questions. The big 3 are also, very, are the most important, which is why MBA, why our specific school, and why do you want an MBA now? These are very important questions. Okay, let's look at the common questions. Okay, so again, let's just look at the common questions. And by the way, I usually don't answer many comments during the interview, during the presentation. I can see you starting to write some comments. Keep writing them. I will answer them. We don't have a lot more slides. We'll be done with the presentation in 10 minutes, and then I can just answer any comments you have. So these are the kind of common interview questions. What we do at ARINGO is after every candidate finishes an interview, we actually go and interview them and ask what they've been asked, etc. We've worked with thousands of candidates, times that via 3 or 4 interviews that each of them get. We've had a lot of interviews, and we've screened quite a few of them to find the most common questions. And these are the questions. I don't think they'll surprise any of you. Okay, so the most common question is walk me through your resume. That's the most common question. Then we have those three we discussed before. Okay, why MBA? Why now? And why us? This is a very important question. We'll touch it soon in the next couple of slides. A lot of the MBA essays were about your career goals, right? Why do you want an MBA? And where do you see yourself in 5 years, in 20 years? This is a classic MBA application essay. And this is a classic MBA interview question. Strengths, weaknesses, those kinds of questions. A question that I've heard more and more in recent years, especially by AdCom members, is if there's something we should be concerned about you, like the interviewer about the interviewee. That's a very tough question to answer. There's a couple more. Yes, your biggest success, biggest failure, and again, I'll discuss some of those. And most interviews will finish with, do you have any questions for me? So I used to, ask that always, and you'll be surprised, even that is part of the interview, because the questions you're asking me, if you're asking me really silly questions or something like that, I might feel you're not a good candidate. So the interview starts and finishes when the Zoom is switched on and off, or when you enter the interviewer's office or coffee shop and come out. Okay, so the entire interview is the entire interview. You can't say that the last section wasn't an important part. Okay, so now I've chosen, I think, 5, of the key questions, and I just wanted to discuss them a bit further. So, the first question usually is, walk me through your resume. At ARINGO, we have a very active consultant forum where we're discussing things and trying to compare stories. We're very collaborative. And we have our usual question before round 1 and round 2 is, walk me through your resume, or tell me about yourself. Are they the same questions or not? And obviously they're not the same questions, but should our candidates answer them in the same way? So the simple answer is no, it's not the same question, and you should probably not answer them in the same way. Tell me about yourself is kind of more personal, and I'm 31, and I live in New York, and I love surfing. And walk me through your resume is, let's walk through your resume. But actually, in both questions, we want to see the same things. We want to see your academics, we want to see your professional career, and we want to hear about your extracurricular activities. So in both questions, we kind of look for the same things. So you can try and practice answering them in the same way. There's no right way to answer it. Okay, I've seen candidates just go, the most popular one is kind of in chronological order, usually after high school, 18 or 19, I started university, I went to study something specific because I loved economics, I tried that, and I added I majored in finance, and I, did a few courses on whatever. And then I went to work in a bank. Okay, so now I go into my professional experience, and I actually did a few jobs there in this bank, and my achievements were very nice. And that's it. And I, out of my professional experience, I love cooking and running. Okay, so that would be just a chronological order, and it works. A reverse chronological order, that works as well. Hi, I'm John, I'm 31. Today I work as a bank manager. Before that, I was a bank deputy, and before that, I got into an entry position in the bank. I got this position through my university degree, which was in finance. That works as well. And by the way, I love running. That can work as well. Another way, again, this is just ways, and whatever works best for you, is you can state your position and then go chronological. All these work. What doesn't work is a very unorganized answer. I was giving today another interview prep session in the morning, and an amazing candidate. On paper, one of the best candidates I've seen, but he gave me a very, very unorganized answer. He started with talking about his business, then he talked about his university, internships, went back to the business that he is in today, then he went back to where he used to be in university. He didn't mention any hobbies, and it was just very unorganized. So just practice this. It can't be much longer than 3 minutes. So this is actually a very tough question to answer. One last thing is, I always like to finish with kind of, and I'm here today because I'm looking for my next challenge, and now I feel that I'm ready to do my MBA. I can elaborate about that later, etc. So you don't have to answer the why MBA question, but you can kind of point the interviewer to that direction in the next question. So that's a bit about walk me through your resume. Okay, it's not an easy question to answer, I have to admit. Okay, why MBA? So if that wasn't an easy question to answer, first of all, this should be an easy question to answer because you're here. You made a huge investment, money, time, Gmat, GRE, applications. You're here today interviewing face-to-face, Zoom, and this is, you've made the investment and there must be a reason. You didn't just apply to an MBA because you thought, oh, that's fun, let's apply for an MBA. So again, just practice your answer. It's very important to be structured in all the various answers. In this answer, it should be quite simple. There might be kind of very general reasons that are, the same for anyone. And there might be some very specific reasons for you. So what would be a general reason? An MBA is a master in business. I want to learn business. Okay. I want an international network. I live in India. I want to go to the US and have an international network. These are, pretty obvious, and they're right. Don't be worried about answering an obvious question. But also look for one or two specific things for you. For example, I want to learn more about real estate investments, or I want to learn more about supply chain management. Okay, that's something very specific to you and that you want to get out of this specific MBA program. Okay, this comes very nicely to why us. Okay, so, after I used to ask, walk me through your resume and why MBA, I used to say, oh, great. So why London Business School? And, a lot of people might answer this already in the why MBA, and that's fine. And if they didn't, the interviewer might ask. And this is very important to show the interviewer that you've done research about their school, that you really want this specific school. Now, I don't want to lie, but if you're going to say, or if the interviewer might think this isn't your first or second priority, it's going to be very hard to get an acceptance letter. So you really have to be motivated about this specific school. You have to know plus minus 1 or 2 clubs, 1 or 2 professors. Okay, you kind of have to know about the school. It really helps if you speak to alumni or students and can do some online research and say, yeah, well, London Business School, it's easy because, I want to work in finance, and London as a location, is one of the best, finance hubs in the world. Specifically at LBS, there's 22 electives all about finance. And I want to learn with Professor Kostas Markides about innovation within financial organizations. So if you can answer something like that, wow, of course you want London Business School. So, you have to study that you have to manage to answer that for every single application that you have and every single interview that you'll get for the school. This is a very tough question that I've also seen, and it's a shame because you can actually practice for it. And it's, what's your biggest failure? Or what's your biggest achievement? Or tell me about something you're really proud of. Or when did you get negative feedback from your manager? Okay, or even what did you do last month at work? So all these questions can actually be answered with the same story, okay, with the same case. The problem is I usually see answers which are not structured, okay? People might tell me, oh, well, what a week it was, but in the end it was good because we won a very big contract. Yes, and? So this guy gave me the result, which is amazing. He told me he worked very hard, but I don't know anything about it. A lot of other times I get kind of, well, listen, 2 contractors were fighting on us and they weren't, they were getting nasty and I had to choose between them and there was a lot of money here and it was a very tough week. Okay, that sounds complicated. What did you do? Was there a result in the end? So a lot of these answers are missing different elements. Now you can use a star, you can Google it, you can use star structure, you can use your own structure. It doesn't really matter how you answer the question, as long as you don't forget all the elements. Let me suggest my Shimri structure, trademark or whatever you want, just very similar to the star structure. And basically, I always like to see a background to the story. Okay, so what was our story? There's two suppliers and they're fighting on us because there's only one contract we can give them. And I need to decide. Okay, so there's two suppliers, they're bad-mouthing the other people, and it's very hard to know who to choose. What's the complication? Well, I can only choose one. I've been given 3 days to do it, and I don't have enough support in my organization or enough technical knowledge to actually verify which product is better. Okay, what did you do? Missing a D, but what did I do? Well, I didn't have a lot of technical knowledge, but I went quickly and I studied the exact 5 elements that our system needs. Or I went to get some help from different departments. Or I outsourced someone to help me with this decision that had more technical or business or different knowledge. Okay, so that's what I did. Or I reached out for help. Or I just did a very long Excel with pluses and minuses, pros and cons, whatever. Okay, you work somewhere, you probably know what you do. Okay, so I did something. And what's very important in every story is the result. And I actually emphasized here and said quantifiable result. The result can't just be, and it went really well. No. How do you quantify a good result? Well, money. There was some kind of sale. Or maybe your boss told you, yeah, that went really, really well. Or maybe the customer, if it was some kind of consulting project, sent a letter to your CEO saying, wow, Shimri was really good. Okay, so there might, hopefully was some kind of quantifiable result. Obviously, if it was a failure story, the result wasn't necessarily very good. Sorry to hear. And we lost the contract. Okay, or our sales declined by 10%. This is a failure. Still, if there was some kind of failure, what did you learn from this? Okay, and I learned to always ask for help on time, and I learned to bring the team. I learned not to make decisions without involving higher up managers or without involving the technicians that need to press the button or whatever. Okay, but you must have learned something, and hopefully today you're better at that failure that happened. So that's how I like to tell or give an answer for an achievement or for a failure question. And again, I think if you prepare the regular questions, why MBA, why now, future goals, and walk me through your resume, plus prepare three stories. Okay, I call them stories, but they're cases from your past. In this kind of structure, you probably have 80% of the interview. Okay, so this is all you need. And then again, there might be 1 or 2 questions that we can't guess in advance, right? I don't know how many golf balls are sold in the US every year. That, I couldn't guess that there would be that kind of question. So it's hard for me to prepare you. So then when we finish with the interview questions, and remember, we're still in the interview will thank you and say, okay, the interview is finished. By the way, if you two are international, if the interviewer is an alumnus and you're an international candidate and he comes from your country, he might move to a different language or local language. He might say, okay, do you want to ask me anything? You can be frank, whatever. Again, remember, this is part of the interview. Now, what I didn't like when I was an interviewer was when the question was very, very hard. Okay. I think someone asked me last year when I was preparing them, do I think the Brexit will help the British economy in the long run? Come on, like smarter people than me don't know the answer to that. Okay. Do I think that because Trump won't get re-elected, will the visa situation, no, I'm not in place to answer that. What I can answer you is maybe if I'm an alumnus from the school you want to get into, I can tell you about my experience. I can give you some tips. If I'm from AdComs, same thing. I can give you some tips about the school. If I'm a second-year student, I can tell you where the best clubs are. I can tell you where students live. Okay, so ask me not very complicated questions. On the other hand, don't ask me stuff that I can find online. Okay, how many students are there at London Business School? Google it. Okay, you don't need me for that. Okay, so you can Google some things. Okay, but I really want to open a new club. Is that something that students can do? That's a very good question that you won't find on Google. Okay, so don't ask too difficult questions. Prepare these questions in advance and align them to whoever is interviewing you. Because if the interviewer is an AdCom, an admission committee member, they didn't necessarily do an MBA. So why would they know what is the toughest class in an MBA? Or how can they tell you about their personal story from the MBA if they didn't take the MBA? And on the other hand, if they're a second-year student, it might be a bit touchy to ask them, okay, how easy is it to find a job at the end of the MBA? Maybe they're still looking for a job. So try and align the questions to whoever's interviewing you. Okay, guys, we only have like 2 more slides and then we're done. So you can start asking questions. And again, this is a live chat and I will try and answer as many questions as I can. These are some interview mistakes that I've seen. I think the most horrific one was that again, to his defense of the applicant, first of all, it was a mock interview and it was one of my clients. And to his defense, he didn't prepare anything. I didn't send him prep material. I didn't tell him what to do. And I just asked him, tell me about yourself. And he answered me 25 minutes. Now, again, I could have stopped him. At some stage, I don't know what I was thinking about. It was so long, okay? So, that was so long. More mistakes are not answering the question. I know that sounds strange, but if I ask you, what's your biggest failure? And you say, wow, well, we had this case of work where there were 2 suppliers fighting each other. And it was really complicated. And, yeah, it was tough. Okay, but what's your biggest failure? Okay, so try and answer the question. Another not answering question is just not being very structured. Okay, if you give me like an answer which is all over the place, I'm going to lose you. I'm just not going to follow your thread of thought properly. So, try and answer the question in a very structured way. Oh yeah, I love the one, so why LBS? And he said, well, if I don't get into Harvard, I think that's a great backup. Not on my watch, it is, okay? I'm an LBS alumnus. I love my school. If this isn't your #1 choice, I'm not going to give you an admissions. So, okay, you have to show enthusiasm to this specific school. I hate people being late. I hate people, with their phone on. Not good. And another thing that I once had, again, it might be me, it might be I'm very touchy, etc. At the end of the interview, this was a real interview, the guy started name dropping. And he kind of said, oh yeah, I spoke to Tom and I spoke to David and they both say hi. And I was like, okay, I know who Tom and David are, but I just didn't feel that was appropriate. Now, it might be appropriate. And if, in certain situations that might be appropriate, this wasn't, okay? From various reasons, again, so this is maybe something very personal, but, just be careful with, trying to name drop too much, okay? If, subtle things are sometimes best. And, I wrote here kind of be humble, okay? If you're an impressive candidate, your application will speak out. Even walk me through your CV, okay? I worked this year with literally the most, well, I won't say, I've actually worked this year with amazing applicants, okay? But I've had amazing applicants. And when you see their resume, when they walk you through their resume, or even if when you read the first essay, you can see they're exceptional candidates. Okay, the only thing I want in an interview is just to see that they're kind of okay people and I would like them in my class. I don't need to check if their career is impressive. That's obvious. So I'm asking the questions of basically, I just want to learn who you are. So just be humble, okay? And don't, go over your way in showing how amazing you are because, I might not like that kind of style. Okay, last slide kind of thing, okay? Because the interview's done. What can you do now? Well, not a lot, okay? I just want to be honest. My nails are pretty short. Okay, this is nail biting season. Okay, people are waiting for their interview. People have been interviewed and are waiting for the final result. Okay, so my candidates, there's not much to write right now. Round 2 is done in January. and they're just waiting for, for results. So there isn't a lot you can do. On the other hand, it's very polite to write your interviewer a thank you letter. Now, the interviewer may have filled out a report about you 3 seconds after the interview. Okay, so I'm not saying this will help in any way. I'm just saying this is polite. And the person in front of you, have they be an alumnus, student, or admission committee member, these are people you want to stay in touch with. Okay, you might I don't know, your ways might cross in the future as well, even if you don't go to this business school. So just be polite and say thank you so much. Okay, great. I really enjoyed the interview, or thank you for making a very stressful situation less stressful. Okay, that can be, nice and polite. This is something that I've been practicing in the last years. It really depends who interviews you. It doesn't work very well with second-year students. It doesn't work very well with admission committee members, but it can work with alumni, which is if you get dinged, if you don't get the response you wanted at the end, you don't get an acceptance letter, or even if you do, I would definitely share the result with the interviewer. And you can say, hi, John, I got in, yay, let's have a drink. Or, unfortunately, hi, John, I just wanted to share the news that I actually got a rejection today. Obviously, I'm very disappointed. MIT was my #1 choice. I did get into Kellogg, yay. Or I didn't. And, if you have any feedback for me, I would love to chat one day and just hear whatever feedback you have for me. Again, this is legitimate. John might not even answer, okay, if he doesn't care about you too much. He might answer and say, I'm shocked, or yes, I think you could have done better, etc. And that's really up to John. He doesn't owe you anything. But I think, that's also nice to keep some kind of relationship with the interviewer. Again, who knows when your ways might cross again. And maybe, just maybe, he'll give you, or she will give you, very valuable feedback. Again, this is just one interview in many business interviews that you will have in the future. Okay, some might be, for MBA programs, some might be for different environments and for, jobs or something like that. And if you're the kind of person that can receive feedback, and I hope you are, why not ask for it? Okay, but basically, apart from that, not much you can do. Okay, so I think we're done. Okay, so we didn't have any marketing slides. So ARINGO are very good. We help with the entire stages of the application. From the prep stage, we have a lot of people that just want kind of a profile assessment, or want to try and need help in scheduling what to do in the next 2 years and how to get into an MBA program. And we actually help a couple hundred people every year get into top MBA programs. The way we do it is, help them with the application process from the beginning to the end, to the interview preparation, of course, and hopefully to some scholarship negotiations. So that's us, that's me. Feel free, if you want some kind of specific question, you can always email us. You can always email me. You can always check us out online, aringo.com. And you have here my personal email. If you want to ask something specific, feel free to do that. I just like CVs first, so I know who I'm talking to. So if you tell me who you are, I'll actually be able to answer more specific questions. Like I said, that's it. We finished. 40 minutes. Yay. And I'm going to now go through the questions you're asking. I can see them. We're on YouTube Live. Thank you, Gmat Club, by the way. Never said that, for hosting me. And I'm starting to read out some questions. Okay. So question number 1, how similar is a MIM? MIM is Master in Management. How similar is a MIM interview to an MBA interview? And their answer is it's pretty similar. The thing is, your profile is very different, right? So you don't have 6 years of professional experience with 4 promotions. You're much younger, and you might be in your last year of university. So the interview can be similar. On the other hand, again, the questions will be more specific around MIM, maybe around your academics, and more about your future plans than your actual professional experience. Okay. Someone's asking, do we help candidates that have opted to take the GRE instead of the GMAT? Of course. So all schools, all top MBA programs, are indifferent to GMATs or GREs. Okay, I know there's a lot of rumors about this. They're all not true. They're all indifferent. You can take the GRE, you can take the GMAT, and you can apply with that. In both, you'll need very good scores for good top schools. But it doesn't matter which one of those you decided to take. A very good question about, should the stories, you remember I told you prepare a couple of stories, should they be only professional or can they also be personal? So, again, not everybody, I think I wrote prepare 3 or 4 stories. Not everybody has 3 or 4, really good stories that they're proud of, biggest achievement in my previous job and biggest achievement, in the previous job before that. But ideally, if you do, the best thing is to have, a very big achievement or failure from university, a very big achievement from your first job, a very big achievement from your current job, and maybe something that you're really proud of from your personal life. Again, very easy for me. I did a prep a couple of hours ago, and I asked, what's your biggest achievement? And he answered very nicely. And he said, I've had a lot of professional achievements, and I would be happy to tell you about them. But the achievement I'm most proud of was helping an organization that helps the homeless in my city. Okay. And you know what my answer to that was? Great. That was, and he gave me the story, and I said, that's a very interesting story. Now, can you tell me also a professional achievement that you had? Okay. So I like the story. And if I wanted a specific professional achievement, I just ask for that. Okay, so that's that. But they're good. I like personal stories as well. Okay, another question. I recently got a promotion. Yay, congratulations. After I submitted my application. Okay, now I understand the question. You updated your LinkedIn. Okay, 2 options here. I don't know when this was, etc. And was it in the same company or not? But people do get promotions. You may have applied to business school in January and you got a promotion in February and your actual interview is in March. Okay, stuff happens. That's fine. A couple of options. If it's something completely different, you can send a very short line to the school. I just wanted to tell you, I left PwC in January and I joined Deloitte in February. Okay. Another thing is you can update the interviewer, okay, in the walk me through your resume. And you can just tell them, oh, just by the way, I applied 3 months ago since I just got this fantastic promotion. So it's actually not even in the resume. Okay, so you can send a line to the admissions. I haven't seen that done too many times unless it's very important. But if you don't do that, yeah, I would definitely try and mention it very early on in the actual interview. Okay. So that was that. Good, lots of questions. Thank you. And I'll try and answer all of them. Okay, so this is also a question I get quite a lot. I haven't been involved in too many community activities. Okay, so this person maybe hasn't volunteered. I wouldn't say you have to have community activities. Okay, when I look at an MBA candidate, I look for 3 factors. Okay, academics. Are your academics good enough? Okay, so if your GPA is horrible, your GMAT is terrible, that might be a problem because there's a course here, and a lot of, especially adcoms, will have a problem with that because ultimately their product is education, and if you're not very good at that, that's an issue. Second thing is professionalism. Okay, have you advanced? Are you I don't know, better than your peers? Does your manager think you're good? This is very important. So your professional advancement. And the third thing is very hard to name. You can say extracurricular activities, but I just say, it's everything else. Maybe you just have, something very interesting about you that other candidates don't. Maybe you just like reading books. I don't know. Maybe you, went to a physics Olympics when you were young, and since then you are a maker with your 3D printer at home. It doesn't always have to be volunteering per se. But I would like interesting candidates, okay? Because remember, I'm looking for someone to be with me in the class. I would like someone interesting. If you don't have any community activity, nothing, zilch, yeah, that's a bit of a problem. I would like to see at least one volunteering. And today, again, I'm sure you can find something to do either via your workplace or your university or just in your community. So I would like to see kind of at least one thing, but it doesn't have to be kind of the biggest volunteer. You don't. Not everybody builds an orphanage in Africa. Okay, it doesn't have to be the biggest thing. Okay. Does London Business School accept candidates who took the GRE? I think I said that. Definitely, yes. You can take either the GRE or the GMAT. That's absolutely fine. Okay. Deferred MBA programs. So a deferred MBA program is something which is quite hot in the last few days. Many schools are offering this in the US. To name some: Harvard, MIT, Columbia, Chicago, Wharton, Stanford, Darden. Those are just a few. And what it means is you apply at the last year of your undergraduate degree. And if you get in, you can actually go and work 2 years or 3 years, depends exactly which program, and then come for your secured MBA. So you kind of secure a seat for 2 or 3 years ahead. The interviews are very similar in one way. On the other hand, you don't have a lot of experience because you're young, you're still in university. So they're actually also similar to the Master in Management program, which is similar to MBAs, just people with less experience. So again, I'm not going to interrogate you 5 questions about what you did in your professional experience because you only have 1 year of professional experience or even less. I will ask you a lot of questions about your internship and about university and why you want an MBA in the future, etc. So that's a bit about the deferred MBAs. How can you increase your chances of getting a scholarship? Okay, that's a good question. So I'm going to drink from my tea a bit. So MBAs are really expensive. You may have noticed. How can you get a scholarship? Well, the best way and the simplest way is, which is going to be very difficult, is having a very good application. Okay, so if your GMAT is very high, your application is fantastic, you interview amazingly, you're going to also get a scholarship. Okay, there aren't any shortcuts in that route. I don't think in the actual interview there's much you can do because beyond just having a very good interview. Okay, you can be straightforward at the end and say, is there something I can do to increase my scholarship chances? But you have to be very humble and say, like, okay, if I get into your prestigious school, and I really hope to, I'm going to have to fund it. What are my scholarship options? You can definitely say that. Although, again, just be a bit careful. I always kind of say, let's get you in first and then try and worry about the scholarship. So someone asked me, what's my impression on not taking the GMAT or GRE? And this year, there are quite a few schools that gave GMAT waivers. Some schools, you can just apply without the GMAT. I think the most noticeable ones are MIT. I saw that in Boston University. You can just apply without a GMAT or just tick somewhere a box. In many other schools, there's a GMAT waiver option. You might have to ask for that GMAT waiver. Darden, Virginia, McCombs in Austin, Cornell, I saw that recently, and USC in the 1-year IBER program. So there's a few schools that you can check out our website. I'll put your link at the end. And there's a few schools that you can apply to without the GMAT this year, and you might have to ask for a GMAT waiver. These schools are all accept. Sorry, I managed to press something by mistake. These schools are all accepting candidates without GMAT. How many candidates will they accept? What are your exact chances? I don't think the schools actually know this yet. So we've had a couple of candidates in round 1 get into MIT with no GMAT. Okay, so this is, by the way, I'm just adding now at the bottom here, No, I'm not adding now, but I'll ask Gmat to add at the bottom here a link to programs without Gmat. Okay, so I just can't see how I do it, but I'm sure Gmat Club will do it, or with Gmat waivers. And we've had some successes with this, but obviously if you have a 750 Gmat, report to Gmat. So do you have a chance without a Gmat? Yes. By the way, this is just this year, one-time offer. It won't return again, only because of COVID. But again, you have to have kind of a reason in most schools why you didn't take the Gmat. And if that works and your profile is great, you have a real chance. And again, I've seen a couple of our candidates get in this year into USC. MIT, we're waiting now for a few Cornell and Darden candidates and lots of MITs that applied without a GMAT. So, stay tuned. I'll let you know at the end of the year what the success rate was. But it's definitely happening. But only this year. It's not going to happen next year. Are there certain academic requirements? Yeah. But you can definitely, let's say I think this is what you're asking. Let's say your GPA isn't very high. Okay, how can you overcome that? Have a high GMAT. Let's say your GMAT isn't very high. How can you overcome that? Have a very good application. So if you look at our logo, GMAT below 720, you can get in. It's because there's a lot of ways to overcome specific hurdles in the application, like a low GMAT or low GPA. Right. Wow, lots of questions. I like it. Okay, so okay, this is a great question. Someone took a gap, didn't work, to study for the GMAT. Okay, how can he, explain to the school, I haven't been working for half a year because I've been working on the GMAT. Well, it's very specific. I can see you haven't been working for 7 or 8 months. That's starting to be quite a long period. Okay, if you're going for a Master in Management program, these programs don't necessarily need for you to have a long business experience. For an MBA, might be an issue. So this is a very specific issue. And again, I'm going to have to overcome this somehow in your application, but hard for me to tell you exactly how to do that. Okay. I'm just trying to go into questions that we haven't answered so far. How does London Business School like people who are looking to pursue an MBA in marketing? They love people pursuing an MBA in marketing. They love people pursuing an MBA that want to do tech. They love people to pursue an MBA to want to do consulting. They're looking for a varied class, okay, with lots of people from, diverse backgrounds and diverse industries. So marketing is great. So again, if my GPA is low, I think I kind of answered that. What do? Answer a high question. A high answer, sorry. Yeah. Score a high GMAT. Okay, don't answer a good question. Score a high GMAT. If the GMAT is low, if your GPA is low, and if your application is terrible, you're not going to get in. Okay, so the 3 elements, get 2 out of 3, and you have a better chance. Is 3.0 or 3.3 considered low? No, that's considered fine. Okay, so I think a lot of schools might not give exact numbers for the average GPA, but you can sometimes look at class profile and you might see 3.5 or 3.4 or 3.6 as a average. But again, it doesn't say were the people learning history, where the GPA might be high, or were they learning mechanical engineering, where GPAs are a bit lower. So I'm less concerned if you scored 3.2 or 3.4. First of all, I would like to know what place you were in the class. And second of all, again, it really depends on the rest of your application. I'm not worried if you scored 3.3 or 3.0. Okay, if you scored 2.1, that's a bit low. And then you might want to explain that in your optional essay. But if it's above that, just score a good GMAT, have a good application, you should be fine. Do interviewees hold a similar chance at admission before the interview? Well, I kind of mentioned this, and that's a great question. So if you go to a school that screened you already, and they checked your application, and they moved you up to the next stage, and now it's an interview. If you have the best interview in the world, you're going to get in. Period, exclamation mark, you're in. If you had a bad interview, you're out. Now, if you've had the mediocre interview, let's say I need to mark you from 1 to 5, and I give you a 3, okay, now they might go back and see, how was your application? Because they might be another 500 threes, but only 200 seats. So it's a tough question. Okay, so do all interviews go in with the same chance? Kind of, if they do a very good job, and kind of if they do a very bad job. The question is, if you're kind of in the middle. And again, roughly speaking, very roughly speaking, you have a 50% chance to pass the interview. Okay? Except maybe Kellogg, where they interview all candidates. But if they've already screened you, roughly speaking, some schools have a much higher chance and a much higher acceptance rate, and some have lower. Roughly speaking, you have around 50% in every interview. And we're nearly there. Okay, 3.3, we talked about that. Okay, executive MBA interviews. First of all, reach out to me if you want, and we can discuss executive MBA interviews separately. They are a bit different, usually conducted by admission committee members, and they're looking for 2 or 3 different areas. Okay, for example, do you have time for the program? Because you're at work, you're a senior, and do you have enough time for the program? Are you committed to the program? Is your workplace supporting you, not necessarily financially, but time-wise? So there's different aspects in executive MBA interviews. We have our executive MBA team of 4 people, and definitely reach out and I can send you a bit of material for that. So I enjoyed it, and I hope you did. That was it from me for now. You have my details. Check us out on aringo.com. Thank you, Gmat Club, again for having us and hosting us. And I hope you all get into your top MBA programs that you wish to get into. And I wish us all health and happiness. So thank you and have a great day. And good interviewing. Bye for now.